So we could send you those.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah. So yeah, come down on the left hand side, we've got our geofences. So this is the ability for you to set up the geofences here. Again, a new feature is the ability for this to be 3D. So you can see here, we've got a floor height and a ceiling height. So if I'm operating below 200 feet, I'm able to transit through that area. And if I'm operating above 300 feet, I'm able to transit. But between 200 to 300 feet, the system would prevent me from operating in that area. This one's from ground all the way up to 900 feet. Obviously, around the outside, you've got our yellow perimeter, and essentially the drone won't go beyond that operational zone. So you can set operational envelopes in which your drone operation will be contained within. Now, on the left-hand side, we've got our call for service, and we'll go into a little bit more detail when we get airborne, and our map layers, again, similar features to what we were showing you a second ago in OpsHub, but obviously transferred into the remote capability, where you can bring Esri layers and different map layer features into here. So there are a number of different ways that I can deploy the drone, and again, we can see the drone on the deck here at the moment. But again, imagine if this was a dock solution, this would be what you would see on the left-hand side, albeit in the dock. So if, for example, I get a call into a particular address, I can come up to the search bar, I can enter the road name, I hit enter, and that will take me to the road address. And then what you would see here is the blue circle is the perimeter that the drone can enter. So I can, if I wanted to bring it to the eastern side, I can drag that round and it would enter the orbit area on the eastern side. And the reason being is that the camera's obviously offset. If we want to look at that address, the drone's got a position slightly offset of that position of the address, so you can actually physically see it with the camera rather than looking 90 degrees down with the gimbal. You can see here the magenta line is the route of autonomous flight that drone's going to take, and now it's a little bit close to that no-fly area. So I'm just going to move that slightly. You can see the line readjusts, so the autonomous flight will now fly along that autonomous magenta line over to the blue area, and when it gets to the blue area, that's when I'll take manual control. So that's one way in which
a step like that is overlooked. When the drone hits the restricted area, what will it do? Hover, or
it will just bounce. It just won't fly through it.
Okay.
So that's one way in which I can deploy the drone. We've also got what 3 words integrations, which is really great for you out in vast areas of water. So if I put in what 3 words, address, again, pulls up the location that I want the drone to go to. I can also put in that and long. So put in that long. Again, pulls me to the address. And then the final way in which I can deploy that drone is simply clicking on the map. So anywhere I want to go on the map, I can simply click it.
That's it.
And it would generate the autonomous route. So once I'm happy with the route that it's offered me, and like I said, I can slightly adjust it if I wanted to. And then I simply hit select on the drone. Now on the dock, this would come up and give me some of the available dock options. Now what it shows me here is the flight terrain that I'm going to be operating, and this will terrain follow. So if you have set the parameters to be operating 200 feet above ground level at all times, or MS, this would then operate along that flight path the entire duration. So if you have a particular island it goes over, it will climb to go over the island, and then when it goes back over sea, it will then drop back to AGL as well and follow that. So from a flight terrain following perspective, this is a great tool for you over vast distances.
One question. Over land, we would use AGL. Over the ocean, we would use ASL. And is it able to switch between AGL and ASL?
Not during flight. So you would probably have to work out what the mean is across the board and then adjust your operations accordingly.
Okay.
But again, that's something we can work with you on to work out which is best to go with. Now in here, we can determine whether we want to stream the video feeds into the mission we're just looking at. So we can set that. I simply hit launch. Now on the right hand side, now the video feed comes up, and on my hand controller, the second I now get it magenta. So you can see on my hand controller around the touchpad, it's now gone magenta.
Right.
And on the screen around the drone, video feed is also magenta as well. So that shows me that the flight is in autonomous mode. and I can also get that notification here. So whilst it's magenta, the drone is flying autonomous to that location. Now on the right hand side here, get all the telemetry from the drone that you would typically anticipate you would get from DJI as well, Flight Hub. So down here you get the gimbal positioning and the elevation that it's looking at. I get information about the wind speed and the direction that the drone is facing, as well as the battery life. Also see how far away it is from home and how long I've got until 10% battery life. And again, that's adjustable. So if you want to increase that battery to return to home, you have that function that you can add in there. Now, I'm not doing anything. The drone's purely flying autonomously along the route that we've asked it to fly along. You can see that on the left-hand side on the map there. And when it gets to that point, it will then enter a hover and it will all go blue and enter manual mode. So the ability for me to manually operate the drone. So it's getting to that corner that we've identified on the autonomous waypoint, and it will now continue up to the second point. When it gets there, like I said, it will enter the hover and it will sit there. So whilst it's
that link you scanned earlier on your phone, you should have a live feed of this demo as well. So that is piping in there. So you should be able to watch with sub-second latency from your phone. Sorry, Stuart.
That's good. So just looking whilst it's in hover now, so it's now in manual mode. So I've now got full control of my controller, and again on my hand controller, I've now got blue around my trackpad. So I know as a visual, if I haven't seen on the screen, I know visually on my hand controller that I've got manual control of the drone. Now just coming along here on the very top bar before we start flying it, you can see some of the details. So I can look at the controller, as again, we mentioned we can adjust the mapping on the buttons. I can look at the video links, so I can see what resolution, what frame rate I'm putting through. I can look at the data link, the GPS, the drone telemetry that's being pulled through, as well as the battery and obstacle avoidance. That all information will get pulled through. Now, from a public safety perspective, I have the ability for the additional call service, so I can adjust that in flight. So this one here, now this first flight, and this is going to be search for suspect, save. Now this call for service within this flight is now retained as the first flight for a suspect search. So when it comes to data purposes later on and public facing dashboard, this would then get shown up in that flight. At any point, I can put up the web link and a QR code. So again, a really easy way to be able to share this with your partner agencies. They don't have to have a DroneSense account to be able to view the video feed being pulled through here. Just got to simply scan a QR code or enter the web link to be able to access it.
So just confirm, you are in the UK at this point, right?
Correct. I'm in the UK and this is out in Michigan.
And you are controlling this drone in the US mainland.
Correct. Yeah. So if I just you're it left.
All right. Good. And that latency is quite acceptable. And again, from what we were discussing this morning, all this requires is your software on the laptop, the controller, the PlayStation 5 controller, and the controller for this drone actually has to be on now as well, correct?
So yes, obviously if you've got a dock solution, then it'll be via the dock. But if what we're doing at the moment is what we refer to as tactical remote operations.
Tactical remote operations, yeah. So there's actually a PIC somewhere around there, but you're actually dealing with the mission. Yeah,
and I get full functionality that you would get on the drone as if I was flying it, like, you know, that you can see just by the car, the latency is, you know, essentially zero, other than my shoddy flying skills. You know, you can see that, you know, if I just simply leave it there now, the latency is because the cars aren't jumping along that screen. And if the latency was higher, you would get jumping of those cars. I have the ability to turn on strobe lighting. I can change my camera palette, so I can go to IR camera. And I can adjust black hot. I can go iron bow, I can go rainbow, fusion. Like all of the options that I can get on the drone are available to me in here. I can also record and take pictures if I wanted to. One of the nice features that we've recently released is the side-by-side image as well. So
yeah,
I wanted.
But that's available. Well, it depends on the drone, right? I mean, that's available on the 3T.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's available in 3TD as well. So 3TD. Yeah. So yes. And then on the left-hand side, I get my altitude in here as well. Now, what I will just show you is the geofence area. So on the left-hand side of the map,
Just a quickly, sorry. Is this also available on the M3D? Side by side? Okay.
What, in terms of integration, or
That's in terms of the capabilities of putting in dual display, both IR and RGB
yes,
side by side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So as you can see here, at the moment the geofence is green because I'm currently at 308 feet. If I were to reduce my altitude, you see now goes to red. So that means I can't enter that area, so the system will prevent me. Also talked about the emergency landing zone. So you can see here, the bottom Thompson Road East emergency landing site is currently got a red kind of glow around it, and it shows down here where my nearest emergency landing site is. So at any point, if I declare an emergency, that would take me to the nearest emergency landing site. Now, if I fly towards the other emergency landing site, you'll see as I get closer to that than I do to the other one, it will swap over. So in a second, there you go. So you can see now that that's got the red glow around it because that's now my nearest emergency landing site. So again, for you, you've got all these multiple islands. As you're flying between the islands, part of your safety case to the regulator could be, well, every single island has got an emergency landing site. So should we need to land at any point, I have the ability to do so. Now, I touched on if we have multiple calls for service within a flight. So we've taken off, we've looked for a suspect, another call's come in for an address, and we want that searched. I simply click on the address I want it to go to, and it gives me two options. So the first option is to go to that location. So if I just got bored of flying manually and I wanted to fly autonomous to a location, I can simply click on the map, enter, and click go here. Or I can click new call for service and go here. Now what that does, you can see up here in the call for service section, it now generates a number 2. So whereas before it was number 1, because obviously it's the first flight, or first call for service within that flight, it's now number 2, and I can now rename that whatever I want to, and I can put on here burglary in progress.
Question in terms of the public safety space.
Yep.
Your police department, you got 3 or 4, M30s and 30Ts. One is on patrol. You getting an alarm. For instance, you are on this patrol just now. You get an alarm for a burglary going on there. Can you, through this software, launch a standby in a dock to go deal with this incident while maintaining the other mission? Because one mission, for instance, maybe from the trial situation, maybe more like threatening. There might be an ongoing armed assault, which you need to stay in closer contact with. While the burglary may be a house invasion where the occupants aren't home. So you wanna get there and deal with it, but you don't want to prioritize it over a possibly like threatening situation. Is it possible to do something like that?
So at the moment you can only operate one.
Okay.
But it's certainly something that, across the public safety sector, that's something that people are looking at. We don't have a timescale for that, but at the moment it's one operation per pilot. And again, it's probably heavily led by regulators as well. Obviously, even if you had another aircraft in the air at that point, sending it back home, you're still technically pilot in command of that aircraft until it lands back on the deck. But you're not the first one to ask that.
Most of this stuff is going to be government or pseudo government agencies. So I do not envisage, especially after the meeting with the civil aviation authorities, where all these things will be drummed out after the inception meeting. I don't expect any issues because they will require that I put down operational procedures. I put down operations manual. I'm gonna have to give them a whole bunch of documentation to get authorization up front, so that anything that's happening will be on the flight. Understanding the precautions that are in place and realizing the immediacy of action for certain agencies not being able to go to the normal 1-day or 2-day channels, right? So there's gonna need to be a lot of pre-approval, which means a lot of documentation got to go in. So I don't really think there's going to be too much of an issue legislatively with these missions for this particular project.
Great. Whilst we've got the aircraft, obviously remote, anything else you want to see or know about in remote whilst we've got it?
No, that is actually quite an amazing demonstration. You know,
so yeah, I mean, so the kind of
latency is really almost non-recognizable, and I'm not I'm not even talking about control latency. You can usually see these things really quickly with video latency, and that's pretty good. So I would not expect the control latency to be any worse, which is good enough for control if you have to be doing it manually.
Yeah, and again to highlight, this is a drone up in Michigan when I'm out in London, being flown through not even a gaming PC. It's just a generic Dell laptop. There's nothing special about anything that's being put on here. It's basic tech, but it's ultimately working 4,500 miles away. So the final kind of feature really is the return to home. So at any point during the flight, simply at the bottom here, can select return to home, and the drone goes back into autonomous mode. So everything goes magenta, back on magenta on my hand controller, and then the drone returns back to, obviously in your case, it would be back to the dock. In this case, it would be back to the tactical landing site. And that's it, really.
Awesome. I mean, this drone is an M30?
This is M350.
A 350.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, Mavic 3, M30, M350, and the Dock 2 is the remote options.
Right.
So yeah, just a return to home, and then once it's on the deck, I hit end flight. All of that then gets synced into Ops Hub, so I'll be able to see the flight. I'll be able to go in, view it in replay, and then if you've got time, just mindful we've kind of run over a little bit, but if you have got time, I'll show you just the kind of public facing dashboard as well, that you can demonstrate what you've done with your flights.
There you go.
Lovely stuff. So then pops up, find the flight, and then I'll come back over to Ops Hub, back to the flights, and we'll give it a second or two. There you go. So flight comes in here. So this is the flight we just flew. You can see me as a remote operator, the drone that was flown, the batteries associated to it, and I can view that flight in replay as well. So that's all recorded in here. Obviously, a unique feature around the remote capability is the call for services. So I can see the two flights, those two call for services that I added in during the call there. So I can see that one there, how quickly I got on scene, whether I was first on scene, and then whether I want to make that public. So I'll just make that one public, and I'll come back and I'll do the second one as well. So I can make those public. So I've made those two calls for service public now, and if I refresh, now this is a public-facing dashboard that you would have as available for your agency. So if they wanted to share the missions they've flown, this is a web link you can give out to members of the public, and you can amend the details that they see. So you might not want to show them the map that you flew, or you might want to change the description, or the address locations might want to change. But you can then have these flights publicly. So from a public acceptance and legitimacy perspective, if people are saying, well, what are these drones doing? You can say, well, go and look at the dashboard, because all of the flights we operate are shown on that dashboard instantaneously. The minute they land and they finish paperwork, it gets shown on the dashboard and customizable. big feature coming later this year, kind of Q3, Q4 this year, is a customizable dashboard with a lot more information. Looks a little bit nicer than what we've got at the moment, but this is what you get off the kind of bat, really. And like I said, only enhancing in the next couple of months. And that is a very quick overview.
This is good for public service announcements, because we do in this region. There's a whole bunch of suspicion when drones fly over property. That's why the legislation is so sort of draconian in this region. So if you can show through public safety advisories that these emissions that are being flown, this is the kind of imagery you're getting. You can't see your dog taking a crap in the backyard or whatever else is going on. So rest assured, everything is cool. That's very good, because there's a big public safety component in this, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, massively.
Yeah.
So, yep. Any questions from that? I appreciate it's a very quick kind of run through and demo, but hopefully it gives you a far better overview of the platform and what it can bring as a benefit to your operation. But any burning questions?
No burning questions.
Fantastic. I think Mike
sent many questions. It was quite self-explanatory. Well explained.
Great, thank you. I think Mike sent over the quote like we discussed earlier.
Yeah, I did. I saw it. I saw it. It's okay. Luckily we're still at the stage where final numbers are to be worked out. That was just to give them, when you're doing a bid, you gotta give people some sort of transparency and awareness of what this thing could cost.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of stuff I estimated. I hadn't even started looking at something of this nature yet. So it's good. I know it's no way exorbitant. And they'll decide which route they want to go. But I believe from the situation that they have, where there should be no more than 4 operational persons in the program, this kind of situation is really good for them, because they can have someone on duty, centralized, someone in the field, and still have 50% of their staff on standby for sickness and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of streamline the management and reduce all the administrative backing to a manageable level.
Yeah, absolutely. No, definitely. And I spoke to my colleague earlier on, and I've got to catch up with him tomorrow, just around the VTOL platform. Mm-hmm. So we've got essentially from a Maverick drone perspective, the ability, like I mentioned, for the co-pilot to bring in full flight telemetry and video feed for a number of VTOL platforms. So he's happy to speak to you to offer out some recommendations about what platforms. He's hopeful that in the timescale you've given over the next 18 months, there may be options that potentially could be added to the remote capability. But at the moment, like I mentioned, restricted to just flight telemetry and video feed. But the ability to bring it into all of the DroneSense platform is a significant enhancement for the team's awareness, really.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Very good. Very good.
Well, thanks so much for your time. Great to catch up again. If you've got any questions in the meantime, obviously appreciate it's kind of be about a month probably until you get anything back. Is that kind of about right?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Okay. Yeah.
Somewhere around there. As I'll say, give it a month, because even if I deploy by the end of the month, it's going to take, there's going to be some inception meetings and some administrative meetings and legislative meetings. So I'm not really going to get a good encapsulated feeling until around the middle of the month. Yeah.
Okay. No worries. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I hope you've got everything you need from us. But if you need anything else, then just let us know. I'm happy to send that over. You got my details. You've got Mike's as well. So yeah, if you have anything, just let us know. We'll have to sort that out for you.
Roger that. And yeah, if you can just shoot those other videos that Mike had referred to over to me, as well as this recording of this section, that would be greatly appreciated.
We'll do. Yeah, we'll get that sorted for you. No problem.
We use them in our demo when we demonstrate the clients. The technology that's available and stuff. So that's cool.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for your time.
All right. Thank you very much for responding so quickly.
No worries.
Okay. Oh, within a day. This is the kind of performance that I like.
Good. That's
I
what
like to get.
we're here to do. So, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. Appreciate it.
All right,
I'll
you
speak to you
guys.
soon.
Cheers.
Thanks.
You're
Bye bye.
good.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, Mike.